Hello world, and welcome to the Pop Culture Patter podcast. As always, I'm your host, Callum Brown, and this week's guest is a new friend of mine, Jonathan. During lockdown, Jonathan created fantastic music under the alias Wilding. I've met Jonathan a handful of times prior to recording this episode, and I've always found him an interesting, talented, and such a lovely guy, and I'm chuffed to get him on for a chat. We talk about welding, music, and he shares a touching story about wrestler Mick Foley. His song Club Kids was my song of the year last year, and Jonathan has kindly let me use this song at the start of the episode, and I couldn't be more excited to share it with you. As always, this podcast was recorded with our good friends at the Podcast Studio Glasgow, the East End of Glasgow's digital creative hub, and the only podcast studio in Scotland to offer 18 years of experience in the medium, and is ran by a pioneer in British podcasting. For more information regarding the wide range of services offered, or to book a session, please visit www.podcaststudioglasgow.com. And before we hear Club Kids by Welding and get into this episode, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Brown & Co Properties, an award-winning family-run estate agency based in Whitburn, West Lothian. With a property mark protected service for a fixed fee, we are your go-to agent for expert property sales advice in the area. Get on the go with Brown & Co.
This place is filth and I'm feeling good. I'm in the club, I'm thinking that I really oughta should come right over and let you know I'm up for photo opportunities and a show. I've seen the cabaret and watched you dance. I've ruined introductions, I'm so drunk I'm in my hands. As the moon, I'm a stranger to you. I wanna take your body, wanna rip your heart in two. Oh my God, I wish you'd say you loved me, at least for that one moment I could feel alive. 'Cause I'm a sadomasochist, I'm an anarchist, with some premises and specialist and functionality. And when we kiss I knew it once, the best of me was through. Come wait and see. I love the way that you've arranged your books. Gives impressions you're a reader and you want us to look. I'm set a stage to mixed reviews. I don't sleep or just dance, I bounce backhand and move. The smokestacks are burning up like Goya paints an overpass. Save your applause, I need a taste, I need some luck to pay the bill, stand on stills, get some radio thrills. My God, I wish you'd say you loved me, at least for that one moment I could feel. 'Cause I'm a sadomasochist, I'm an anarchist, with supremacists and specialists and functionality. And when we kiss I knew it once, the best of me was through. To come wait and see. 'Cause I'm a sadomasochist, I'm an anarchist, with supremacists and specialists and functionality. And when we kiss I knew it once, the best of me was through. To come wait and see.
Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. And first of all, how are you?
I'm good. I'm quite busy at the moment, so I'm just trying to keep myself busy, and it's quite nice to be busy.
And thank you for taking the time to come on just because you are so busy. I know that's quite hard to get people on with stuff like that, but I really appreciate you coming on. It was actually our friend Jamie, our mutual friend Jamie Scott, who was on episode 10, introduced us together. And we've known each other, like we've been a couple of wrestling events together, but we don't know each other too well.
No.
Until this weekend, I feel like I got to know you a lot better,
Yes.
which is great.
Which most people don't enjoy, I'll be honest. Most people are like terrified of getting to know me. Or maybe it's the other way about. But yes, that's true. So hopefully this isn't your final podcast by inviting me on and me destroying it.
No, not at all. I actually said to Jamie when I'd started the podcast, or I was thinking about starting it, I said, do you think Jonathan would come on? I think he's such an interesting guy. Would you do that? And he was like, I'm sure he would do that. So we finally made it.
It's I checked my schedule and I wasn't too busy, and I flew in just for
it. Do you have any pop culture interests?
I suppose I do. Maybe I'm quite boring in the sense that I watch quite a lot of movies. I would listen to quite a lot of music, and I read books, which might sound quite controversial these days, but I do that. So I'm quite traditional in terms of what I would do in my spare time and what I'm kind of interested in. So so at the minute I'm trying to read more books, which is pretty much like everybody's New Year resolution, because as you know, we spend so much time on our phones and we check and see if someone's been in touch with us, or if someone's liked a post that we've put up of a cat, and which I routinely do. I routinely put up my cat pictures, and I think, why didn't Sarah like this? And then you fall down this sort of doom hole of thinking she didn't like that cat because she hates me. But I don't really do much other than that, aside from work.
And in terms of the pop culture stuff, like you were saying, movies, music, and books, is there anything you're reading, watching, or listening to at the moment?
Yeah. So what have I been reading? I read a fantastic novel, which I'm trying to get everybody to listen to, but the people have kind of told about it. Some of them have sort of raised their eyebrows, thinking, it's maybe not for me. But a book called Manhunt, which is phenomenal, and I won't waste it for anyone.
Right.
Or give the game away, but it's really fantastic. It's a beautiful novel about two trans women and a trans man, and it's set in a dystopian future. And that's all I'm going to say. It's worth checking out. So I read that. I've also been reading, I've sort of swallowed the black pill slightly, and I've been reading Bret Easton Ellis again. So I read his new novel, The Shards, which was really good. And at the minute, I'm currently reading Dennis Cooper, The Sluts.
Right. So
it's quite... it's I've sort of slipped down that sort of nihilistic, almost like dead-eyed world. So I'm currently reading that.
Yeah.
So my new music will certainly sound a lot different from anything I've previously done. I find
that when I'm reading sort of good books or good authors, I'm more kind of sensitive, at least, to working out my own personal feelings of something, or you're just attempting to try and, I don't know, dig a bit deeper into yourself. So I think for me, it kind of goes hand in hand. I think if I wasn't reading, then I would just be doom scrolling. And I don't think there's a lot to kind of talk about when you're doing that.
Yeah. I think when you and I first met, we talked about our love of film, and our love of film might be different, but like, I was telling you that I was wanting to write something, and you told me that you'd kind of been dabbling with writing. How much have you saw that through?
Well, for me, maybe it's like a lot of people, but me, writing is kind of a it's going to sound really naff when I say this, but it's a bit of a continuum, and it's something that I've always enjoyed doing since high school. So I've always written kind of like about myself, or something like kind of something that I know as a kind of cathartic thing. And so certainly in high school and at uni, I used to write scripts. It's sort of similar. And so I remember when we were chatting about that, I used to write scripts literally for no one but me. And they were just scripts about me doing amazing things. So it was total lies.
Yeah, you're basically journaling.
Pretty much. And so for me, it was this just, it's a kind of landscape just to kind of work on my own kind of personal feelings. And when I was 23, I wrote a book called Good Morning Satan, which kind of says, the title says everything about it. But I'd always wanted to do it, and I'd always kind of wanted to like express myself in that way. And I'm really chuffed that I did it. I don't think I would ever write something like Good Morning Satan ever again. However, it's there, and it's, you know, the ramblings of a very obscure 23-year-old man. So, yeah.
And you self-published that, is that right?
I self-published it. I sent it to one publisher, and I got quite a nice letter back, but it was deemed too dark for them. So I quite enjoyed that. I was like, yes, that's great. And I just I'm going to self-publish it and be the new 50 Shades of Grey prior to 50 Shades of Grey. That didn't work. And so I used to do this really odd thing where I had, it's going to sound absolutely terrible, and I can't believe I'm now telling this story, but I had copies of the book, and I think I had, maybe I had about 6 copies, and I gave one to a couple of friends. And I used to work in town, and I used to almost religiously walk to Waterstones on Sauchiehall Street, and I used to do sort of semi-antisocial things where on the elevator up to the first floor on Waterstones, there was a little hole that always had a book in it. So every time I would go up, I would turn the book round, and that was my sort of small act of resistance. But then I got into the habit of bringing Good Morning Satan with me, and I would leave it in Waterstones in like the classic section or like the best new author section. And I used to just take pictures on my mobile phone of this book, and every day I'd come back and someone had found it and removed it. So well played, Waterstones, but the game is afoot.
And would you ever record it as an audiobook?
I mean, I don't think anyone would like to listen to my dulcet tones for hours and hours talking about insane acts. But maybe if there is a marketplace for it, I am available for kids' parties and audiobooks. So, yeah.
And you also were telling me at the weekend that you wrote a stand-up routine as well, and you were going to go down that route at one point. I mean, you're such a creative guy, and this episode is going to be centred around how your creativity in every sense of the word. But
I sort of feel the little me inside me just slowly curl up into a ball and die. So I did write a stand-up routine, and a pal of mine did stand up, and I kind of thought I just kind of wanted to do it. I was at the right place at the right time in my life where I cared enough but not too much, and it wasn't a professional career. It was more of a can I get away with just doing this for one night only, and and then it's a sort of, oh, it's done, it's dusted. I did that. And so I wrote these jokes and timed it. I bought a timer and I started doing it, and I was in the right place. I had the right kind of energy. And then I suppose, thankfully for the people of Glasgow, COVID occurred and it stopped me doing that. So yeah, and I don't have the energy to or I'm not desirous to try and do it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Glasgow's very lucky not to have me say terrible things again about myself.
We almost had you up on Sunday night performing the sketch, and I still think it'd be fun to do it and tick it off.
I think I don't know if I mean, well, I'm sort of on the ropes now because I don't think I could do it, but I did say a couple of jokes that I had at the weekend. But even that's a sort of odd thing because I'm sort of like, usually when I do something creative, or if I do a piece of writing or music, as soon as it's done, it's kind of done. And for me, I find it very hard to go back to a thing.
Right.
So usually, you know that sort of phrase that like Bob Dylan cannot stop touring because he's like a shark who he can't stop swimming. I think for me, once I've done a thing, I sort of move on.
Yeah.
And I have to because there's other stuff to do.
Yeah, and talking about other stuff, you've got a musical project at the moment that came birthed out of lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Of Wilding.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Well, I didn't play music. I've always played music throughout my life, and I literally stopped. I stopped playing music after the breakup of my last band during my 20s, and so I didn't play anything, and I just worked as a corporate drone.
Yeah.
And the lockdown happened, and sort of slightly before lockdown, but as it was happening, I just got so much more involved, and it was really a fantastic thing because it was really music was such a big part of my life, certainly growing up, and it was something that wasn't there, and I didn't realise that I actually missed it, and so a lot of the songs occurred quite quickly. I've now I think over 30 songs, and it's been a really fantastic process for me, and it's also been quite a sort of different process without writing with anyone else and sort of doing it. So lockdown really afforded me that ability to just try and, again, it might sound a bit naff, but sort of find that part of me again that I'd completely lost or forgotten that was there. So bring on another lockdown, I say.
But in this, you were saying earlier on about once you've kind of closed the door on something, but you with music, you've seemed to got the opposite. Like you're being more creative.
Well, it's certainly been. I think for me, because music taps into. It isn't just music for me. It taps into lots of different things that keep my interest in them, and I think it's been something that unfortunately has been so missed from my life for so long. There's just been so much there to kind of talk about, and I've changed as a person, like we all do. I'm not the same person that I was in my 20s, and so there's just so much more to talk about, and I have so many opinions.
Yeah,
so,
you've got something to say.
Well, yeah, I think that's the difference. I think now sort of attacking it as someone who is, in the aged out category of the X Factor, or certainly in the overs. But I think the overs is actually, someone mentioned that to me, that the overs category is like 24.
Right.
It's really low.
That's very low.
I might be wrong, but I'm sure it's very low. And I thought, what do you know at 24? You know literally nothing at 24. Not that I'm saying that you need to be 10 years older to know anything more, but I think for me it's been really nice, and it's been quite an organic process, because sometimes being in a band because of the pressures and I suppose the egos that can develop, rightly or wrongly. There's a lot of kind of pressure to produce kind of all the time.
Yeah.
And it just so happens, I think probably in the most productive musical period of my life.
Yeah. And you've done it from writing it to actually recording it, producing it yourself. You've done everything on that way yourself. Like, how was that? Was that kind of like, I want to challenge myself and do it that way, or was just that's what you had to do?
It was. That's what I had to do because lockdown occurred and I didn't see anyone. Like a lot of people, I didn't see anyone for ages, and I had these songs, and it was almost like you know when you have like a $5 or a $10 in your pocket and it kind of burns a hole in your pocket. It was a bit like that I just had to kind of get it out, and so I recorded the songs in my house, and without any vocals or any acoustic drums. So I got in touch with a friend of mine, Gal, and he has a studio in Castlemilk Youth Centre, and it just so happens because of lockdown, he was stuck in Glasgow, and it was just really fortuitous because he was free, I was free, and it allowed me to go and I'd never recorded drums, I'd never sang, and I'd only ever played the bass. So it was such a fantastic experience to do all of it, and to also not have, it was quite interesting to not have someone like in your band going, I think that's a bit too loud, or why don't I do a guitar solo over this? And that just becomes part and parcel of being in a band, but to have that freedom to either not be called out on your kind of extravagance of a part or whatever, took a bit of getting used to, personally.
How many instruments did you have to learn?
Well, I didn't learn anything new, so I did know how to play all these instruments. But I think for club kids, I went to my mum and dad's house, because when I was in primary school, I learned to play the trombone. So I went to my mum and dad's house to basically try and resurrect my trombone, which was hidden in the attic, and it was very interesting. So I brought it home. I tried to play it. I'd lost my embouchure, so I had no muscles to do it. I sounded quite bad, and that was a bit of a challenge because I wanted, for club kids, I wanted to have like organic instruments, or as many as I could put on, and so because I just think there's something kind of like better, or your ear kind of naturally maybe goes to,
absolutely,
that's a real instrument, rather than fake drums or something like that. And so the trombone was hard, but I've always loved playing the piano and playing the bass and the guitar, so it was just a really fun experience.
Yeah, and the club kids, when I first listened to it, I was blown away. Like our friend Jamie, we were sitting in a car, and he said, Jonathan's wrote a song and has recorded it, and it's really good. Like, listen to it. So we were sitting in his car, and I think we were looking at premises that he was potentially going to be taking, and we just had a meal, and we'd sat in the car and just stuck it on, and I was just like, wow. I'm genuinely speechless at how good that is. And you've released numerous EPs after that, and I'm just even like, I'm listening to them all and thinking, how is this possible that I know this person? Because it's so good. And as a music fan, it's something I would listen to, and I think I told you that on Sunday, but I'm just so proud of you for making that, and I'm now a fan, so I want to hear more, and I can't wait.
Well, thank you very much. That's really lovely to hear that, and I will accept it and say thank you. It's because I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think ultimately it maybe came from a lack of listening to things that I that I kind of wanted to hear as well. And so when I started doing the songs, I let my sort of close friends, and I've only got like a few close friends, like hen's teeth, you know, they're very rare in my life. And so I let them hear it, and they were like yourself, very supportive, and also slightly confused, I think, because of how I look. I think a lot of people just assume that it's going to be some sort of either math rock or like some sort of like really delicate electronic music, rather than something that's you know, for ambitious outsiders like myself. But I it's been a really wonderful thing to do, and like every day I'm constantly writing, and I'm constantly playing the piano or the guitar, and so it's now like a part of my life, because it kind of has to be. It feeds so much like about in me, and for what I kind of want.
And I'm so glad that you spoke about it being an organic instruments that we're using, because it's so easy nowadays to go and use sample stuff and you know, synthesizers to be drums or to be horns and all of that.
I mean, I'll be honest, if I could have done that, I would have done that. I didn't have the technical ability to do that, and so I have pals who are really fantastic at things like that, but there is a part of me that I'd get to a stage where I'm like, oh, this element isn't particularly fun. And I think when you do the lyrics, which I think are the most important part really of a song, once you write the lyrics and you've written the music and recorded that, I don't really want to fall down the fall down the kind of like technological kind of hole that you can, because I think that's maybe a part of when I've written a song, I'll recorded it, I have to move on, because you do fight that urge to tinker with the thing. And again, I've got other pals who write music who are great musicians, but they fall into the category of maybe endless like tinkerers of a thing, and so the thing might not come out, or it's maybe only listened to by a couple of people. And so for me, it's I have to keep swimming and finish. You know, once it's done, I move on. Yeah,
and when you were a bassist, were you ever thinking that you would explore being a singer?
No, not at all. I think I love playing the bass guitar, and the only reason I played the bass guitar was because when I was in high school, there was as you can imagine how terrible it would be, but a high school band, and they had a rhythm guitar player who was better than me, and the lead guitar player was better than me, but I really wanted to be in the band, and they're like, well, why don't you just play the bass? I was like, yeah, I'll play the bass. And I had no clue what a bass looked like, and we went to the music department, and I pilfered a bass guitar, and it was at that point as big as me. I had no clue how to play it. My fingers were so sore. It was a total eye-opener. But I suppose without the bass guitar, it kind of led me down listening to, I suppose now, sort of odd music, because I was so obsessed with playing the bass guitar. It led me down to listen to Jaco Pastorius, and one of my even now still one of my heroes, which is Stu Ham, and who's a bass player from America, and not that really anyone other than bass players care about that, but it sort of really I think cemented my love of obscure music as well. So throughout high school, I used to just listen to Stu Ham's solo albums. So me and literally 3 other people on the planet would listen to Stu Ham's albums. And but to me, even if they come on now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great album. That's really fantastic. And people are like, it's just a bass guitar and some drums, and there's no singing. I was like, no. It's just Stu Ham's bass. It's and so so playing the bass, was something that I am really, really thankful about playing. And the reason I played the piano, my mum is a really fantastic pianist, but I was never taught. But the reason there was a piano, a keyboard basically in our house, and I did it to stop so that I wouldn't study. So I remember being on leave from school for standard grades and then hires, and the only thing I did, I never actually really studied. I just played the piano, and I remember, because I found studying quite hard to, I suppose, be kind of motivated to do it. But maybe it's how my brain kind of works.
Yeah.
But the piano was there, and so it allowed me to, figure out how to play, the Jurassic Park theme song and Phantom of the Opera and things like that. And then my mum would come home and say, "Have you studied maths?" And you're like, "No, I have not studied maths." But listen to this. She's like, "What's that?" It's Jurassic Park. It's like the end bit with the bird and the no. Stop it. Get up and do maths.
My mum and dad are singers. I mean singers, they're karaokeers. They love a karaoke.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if it's because I seen them do that at a young age, it made me want to do the same.
Uh-huh.
But no, I was always a singer. But now I've got into playing the guitar. I've got a piano.
Wonderful.
I'm not good at it. But I'd love to get better at it because it's such a beautiful instrument, isn't it?
It is. Like again, it's I don't know if it actually says maybe quite a lot about me, but the only reason I played music in the first place was to get out of class. Like, I hated primary school. I had an awful teacher. I suppose the whole class had an awful teacher.
Yeah.
But it was so monstrous that when a brass teacher came to the school, he basically, I think he was trying to put together like a brass section for the high school, and he said you can play, I think it was tuba, baritone, trombone, or trumpets. And the only reason I played the trombone was because the person sitting next to me said she would play the trombone. I was just like, well, I'll play that. and at no point did I know what it looked like, because he'd only given us the mouthpieces to try, and they were obviously desperate for people. But it allowed me to leave school one day a week to go and play this, and it allowed me to go to the high school before I went to high school to go and do this. And so yeah, every kind of musical instrument is an attempt for me to not do a thing.
Yeah.
So,
just as many as there was possible.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's so many out there.
And what's the plans with Wilding? Are you going to do a tour? Are you going to do a record? What's the plans?
Well, I think just now I'm selling faster than the Bible. So I think I would love to play a gig. I think that's what's going to happen. So I'm currently putting together the Glasgow equivalent of the Avengers, like music style. So I'm getting a band together, we're rehearsing, and hopefully at some point this year we will play a gig, because I think it'll be really good because there are lots of other songs that are not recorded, and so it'll be quite nice to just keep putting them out. And I think in terms of that sort of personal expression, it's something that I would really like to do.
Yeah, I know a lot of people don't seem to make records anymore. It seems to be just EPs, that like 4 or 5 tracks, and I've noticed that with a lot of like bands at the start.
Yeah, well, I would guess that's a lot to do with I suppose capitalism, really, and a lack of affordability for a lot of musicians. And I think that I think sort of when I started writing music again, there was just so much that like even in Glasgow there was so many bands that personally I find horrifically boring. And I find it desperately hard to care about a lot of them. And so I think for me it was not as the antithesis of that, but there's lots of like even Glasgow bands who moonlight as other things, like quite a few of them are models and things like that, which I sort of disagree with. And I think that their music sounds like that. It's not very emotive, and I think at least whilst I'm doing my music, at least I know I am being honest about it, and I think that is the best thing you can kind of be. At least there is no artifice. Everything is myself. So, like me, hate me. It's at least out there, and it's not from anything. There's no leg up or hand up.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is important, because I think that people who get hand ups and are connected to various people, they don't really have anything to say.
Yeah.
And I think certainly the musicians and the bands that I like, and the music that I at least try to make, there are things to say, and quite often it's far better than any of the drivel that's currently, I suppose, polluting all of our eardrums.
Yeah, and the persona of Wilding, that's a very eye-catching persona as well, and it's very different. And where did that come from?
I think that's quite naturally a part of my personality, that either has been hidden for quite a long time, or it's just something that at this stage in my life needed to appear. And so I think that's why Wilding, even the name, is quite it's meant to be a very powerful, self-reflective and empowering name, and I certainly find that, and I wanted something like that would at least stand out.
Yeah, I can just see it in my head of you on stage and just having like a big fur boa or something like that, and you've got your fishnets on, and I can just see it,
I mean, I've currently got my fishnets on, but I would certainly love to play live. I think I'm certainly drawn to the both the physicality and theatricality of playing live on stage, because although the music scene has changed and has changed over quite a few years, particularly after COVID, I think that the emotive response and that physical response that you can get from music and seeing a live band is really unlike a lot of things.
Yeah. And have you thought about your performance from a stage point of view? Have you got like an idea of what you would want visually?
I think there are certainly things that I would love to do, aside from being like lowered from the ceiling with a grand piano. I think aside from that, I think I would quite like just quite a physical sound, one that's very present, and hopefully when we play live, whether or not it's to support someone or not, hopefully people will enjoy it. But I suppose it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I can just see. I was saying with Club Kids, I can see an orchestra behind you with that, and that's what I want to see.
I mean, I would love to see that too. I don't think my pennies could sort of reach orchestra level yet, but as soon as it can, it is happening. But I think I suppose Club Kids is quite a natural song for something like that. And I suppose every band and artist wants to experience something like that. But most don't, I suppose, or they have members of the band that maybe don't have that vision or desire for something as maybe theatrical or as intimate as that. Yeah.
And what is it like to get a tour? I know we're not talking tours, but like to take your show on to a gig level. I don't really know how that goes about. Do you need to get management, or do you need to like?
I think I would be unmanageable. I don't think so. I think it's just I'm going to I've got a group of pals who have all signed like a blood oath to go down with the Titanic. So we are going to try and create just as much noise and energy as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, whether or not people would like to see us again or not, at least we did it. And I think it'll be really good. I'm looking forward to doing it. I'm sure it'll be quite fun.
Yeah, and putting your music out there and having that the social media now at our fingertips. Do you know who you're reaching? Or is there anybody reached out to be like, oh, I've heard this song and I absolutely love it?
Well, my cousin actually asked if he could play a few of his tracks. He has a podcast himself, and he got in touch and he said, could he play some of the tracks of the background? And I said yes, and he sent me over quite a few comments to say that people had really liked it, and that's really lovely, because it's really nice to you probably find this yourself when people do reach out that you've either just had a small impact on their life, or they've just heard a song and thought, I quite like that, I'm going to download it, and that's nice. It's and I think for me, although I've sort of done this music for primarily myself, because I don't think anyone can really think about who they want to target, or I think that sounds too contrived for me, but it is really nice when people get in touch, and I think I'm not particularly good at receiving compliments because I'm kind of horrifically shy. I'm not very good at that, but I'm trying to be better and accept them with whatever goodness is given. So.
I don't know anybody that's good at taking compliments. I think that's just a thing that we all have, and if there is anybody that's good at taking them, there's a question mark.
Well,
there.
I wonder if it's a class thing. In fairness, I wonder if I don't know any working class people who are good at taking compliments. There's always a something, and I'm certainly like that. And people will say, "Oh, congratulations!" or "I really love this," and I'll say, "Yeah, but you know what? This morning I stubbed my toe," and like, yeah, that's not what we're talking about. But I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just not a good person.
Yeah, and with you having the music thing, and you've been writing songs before you even pulled the trigger on recording, but like, was there any kind of artists that inspired you over the years? Is there certain songs that are like that's an ode to them, or?
There are no songs that are specifically to like a specific artist, but there have been many important bands and artists throughout my life. Some that I still return to, but for me, some of the most important ones in my life were ones that it isn't just like about that person. So, for example, I think one of the first people that I really got into was Bob Dylan, and he really had a huge impact on me. But one of the really interesting things about Bob Dylan is that you are forced to move beyond him. So you're kind of forced to maybe look at the poetry of Arthur Rimbaud or Woody Guthrie's music, and it leads you down different paths to other writers. And another really fantastic band is the Manic Street Preachers. I remember I was introduced to them. I never found them myself, but I remember listening to the lyrics and just being completely blown away, because what Richie Edwards and Nicky Wire, what the lyrics that they come up with, again, it sort of feeds you down different things. It can feed you down to Dennis Cooper, and it can feed you into sort of queer novels, and really interesting Dostoevsky, and I think for me they are that's part of a lot of the artists that I love, because I feel that, and I still feel that there is an intimacy there that's maybe not there just as in a sort of marketed standard in inverted commas artist.
Yeah.
And I think that again those sort of songs are they're so incredibly emotive and interesting for me. Far more, right? I listen to lots and lots of songs, maybe similar to yourself, and quite often, quite often the song is about how that person is lonely, and the song, the whole album's just about that. And then I always think, well, all right, someone's dumped them, and I always think, well, maybe it was you. Maybe you kind of deserved it. And they can bring out second albums, and then they're still talking about how ultimately they're a Nigel, and you're like, well, that's a bit boring, because most people are working in offices, or no one cares that you're a Nigel. Come on. And it's just, I think I'm being slightly facetious, but I think ultimately that is what I feel.
How much of your personality at Wilding's coming through here?
I really don't know. I have no idea.
I was going to ask, we had sat down and watched WrestleMania on Sunday, and had a great day of just camaraderie and like the guys all getting together, and we stayed up far too late, and we were all very struggling we're all over 30 now, and we're struggling.
How dare you? My CV says 28.
And you were talking about how your love of wrestling began through Mick Foley.
Yes.
Would you care to elaborate on some of those details?
I think I really struggled in primary school, and I sort of continued that struggle through high school, and sort of reflecting on it now, I hated high school, and I really did. It was a terrible atmosphere for me, and one of those kind of people that symbolised, at least in part, almost like a protective armour for me, was Mick Foley. And Mick Foley along with Stu Ham. And so I used to have a cutout of Stu Ham from a Fender guitar magazine, and because he used to have a Fender bass, a signature bass, and I used to have it on my drawer unit, and on my wall I had a picture of Mick Foley, and they were my two almost like totems, my like protective animal spirits, and they kind of, there was this for your non-wrestling fans, this might sound quite boring, but Mick Foley is, as you know, well renowned for taking big bumps, and in my head it was a kind of mantra that just to get through the school day, I used to think, well, Foley can take bumps, I can take bumps, and it really helped me. And I think right now I can appreciate, in my 30s, I can appreciate how important he really played, and he still does play in my life, because it was when I watched sort of 90s, very early 2000s, which is when I kind of stopped my wrestling journey. Yeah. So for me, aside from being like a social thing now, but for me it kind of ended there, and not that I'm nostalgic necessarily for it, because I think nostalgia is a bit of a drip, but for me that was the wrestling sort of time. And so there was like a really famous match in 2000 between Mick Foley and Triple H, and it occurred at the 2000 Royal Rumble. Yeah, so for me that is like, because for me it's the greatest promo and for like a match. And so again, for your non-wrestling geeky listeners, there's a promo right before the match that for me encapsulated all of that period of my life. That includes like vignettes and sort of vintage stuff from Mick Foley's death matches, and it really helped for me. I remember thinking, I can get through high school, and just get through high school, just get through it. And even now, like, even on days where I'm feeling like particularly low, I'll maybe still seek out that promo, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's okay. Foley wrestled on barbed wire. I can do this. And so he has a really important kind of spectre in my life. Although it's got nothing to do like musically or creatively, I think on an emotional level, I think when you get people that you like, they tend to stick with you, particularly if you get them in high school.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry to hear about that high school was so traumatic for you.
That's okay.
And that you had to make like some sort of like hope out of Mick Foley.
Yeah.
But I think that we were speaking at the weekend about The Rock taking liberties with that match and just beating him to. They didn't have to go as far as he did.
No.
And, you know, we talk about Mick Foley, and he's always renowned for taking that bump off the cell and through the cell as well. And I don't think anybody knows how high up that is, and to fall on your back onto like hard wood, you know, that he could have died. You know,
it's and I think you know that match, although it isn't a particularly good match, it is a match that. When you're a wrestling fan, or when you're young and you're listening to wrestling, it sticks. It's just one of those matches that you're like, oh, remember when The Undertaker fought Mankind? And there's so much kind of in that period of the wrestling world that the storylines really kind of dig deep, and they are quite impactful. And so for me, they still are. Right? I'm still touched by them as an adult, and I don't know what I would ever do if I met someone like Mick Foley. I don't think I could ever actually meet him.
I was going to say, I think, have you never tried to reach out and tell that was a story?
Well, no, I didn't. But what happened, which you might know, is that our mutual friend Jamie, for my birthday, got me a cameo from Mick Foley, and Jamie never told me anything about it, and I just suddenly got this WhatsApp, and then Mick Foley was talking to me, and he was talking about me playing trombone and making music, and a whole and how I was a writer, and there was just a raft of things that I remember thinking, why is Mick Foley telling me all this stuff on my birthday, before I actually sunk in, like, oh, he's sending me a birthday message, oh my goodness. And so it's really one of the most fantastic things I've ever received.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, so it's so on days that I'm maybe feeling down, I will watch Mick Foley do an impression of Mankind, do an impression of Dude Love, and for me, the sort of embodiment of strength was Cactus Jack. So I have a terrible fear of flying, like a lot of people, and so I'm either the best or the worst person to sit beside on a flight, because I'll either be talking at you about a thing, or I'll just be completely silent and gripping the armrests. But Jamie, I don't know why we keep talking about this man, but anyway, this man, he bought in 2015. I had a big flight to go to Thailand, and it was looking very unlikely I was going to do it, because I was having panic attacks, and I was convinced that the flight was going down. And Jamie, out of the blue, just presented me with a Cactus Jack t-shirt, and he said, there's a t-shirt for you. And I thought, oh, well, if Cactus Jack is on my body, the flight will be okay. And even if it's not, at least he'll see me into the afterlife. And so every flight I now go on, I have a Cactus Jack wanted t-shirt. Right underneath, even like my jacket or whatever, it's there to sort of just remind me that it will be okay.
I didn't know any of this, and obviously I've only had Jamie's friendship from my point of view, and I know what he's done for me.
Oh, he's a terrible man. Let's just be honest, he's awful.
To put it in wrestling terms, we've fully put him over.
Yes.
he's the most over man on Pop Culture Patter.
Oh my goodness.
But that, signal of strength and that hope. I'm going to try and tag Mick Foley in this episode, and I want him to listen and hear that story because I think it's so cool.
Well, if he reaches out, I would like to personally thank him because you know, and I say this, realizing that there's not an exclusivity on anything. Him and lots of other people, wrestling or not, have helped millions of people to sometimes the hardest thing to do is just to get out of bed of a morning, and he really did that for me and still does. And so if he does watch it or listen, at least in part, thank you.
Yeah, he doesn't, but he will.
Yeah.
I'll make him. I fully expect Wilding to have fishnets on and a Cactus Jack top on the first gig.
Well, I'm not too sure about the Cactus Jack. I think I'll keep that for Jonathan.
Okay,
that can be our thing. But I don't think it would suit Wilding to promote WWE too much.
That's very true. Where can the people find you online and your music?
So my music is on iTunes and Spotify. It's also on YouTube, and I have an Instagram account, and it's under the name Wilding is Dead. So yes, please find me.
Mm-hmm. And we've booked in this episode with 2 songs from Club Kids and All the Lonely Playboys. Will be bookending the episode. So that's, if you're listening and you're wondering why is there music coming on when there should be a podcast, it's because of that. So and it was because I'm proud of your work that I want to put it on here, and I love listening to the songs. I genuinely am a fan, and I'm like, now that I feel like we've struck up a bit more of a relationship that we've ever had. So I'm going to be at you every couple of weeks, being like, when's the new stuff coming out? Let me know.
Please do. I've just realised that my Wilding is Dead is my Twitter handle.
Okay.
And it's wildingofficial on Instagram. I wouldn't want to send people down a rabbit hole who couldn't find me should they be looking for me. But yes, please keep pestering me. Hopefully I'm back in the studio in May, and we'll get another song out. But at least rest assured we are working on getting a live gig sorted.
And I said on Sunday, keep bringing us the bangers, because the tunes are so good, man.
Thank you very much.
And you're very welcome, and it's been a pleasure having you on, and thank you for coming on. And it's been great for me to be like, you were in my mind before I started the podcast, and to get you on, it's awesome. So
thank you, and I wish you all the best for your podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode, and we're about to hear another song from Wilding called All the Lonely Playboys. Enjoy, and see you next Tuesday.
When the war was announced, I was already asleep. Oh well, I'll catch the next one just for you. And we sang Moon River by a bedside shiver, and you said I couldn't hold a tune out there, Brutus, or just you. And the young teens getting restless, I need to dress less to impress you. I'm just a working boy trying to get by. I never left, you just started screening calls, and my shirt was always somewhat in pearl. Oh God, I've done it again. So what, you never made your fortune inflating the stock price of a love life that nobody wanted. Accept me, accept me.